Okay, this year we'll be introducing some tiny lures, mainly because of the southern bluefin tuna market. So we're introducing it. You guys heard of a lure called the Uzi, the Pakula Uzi? Okay, this is now the micro Uzi. And part of the hot head range, we're bringing back the old Uzi and the Floozy and the Zip and the Mosquito. Now a lot of you blokes think, and it's actually been a big mistake of New South Wales anglers, is you guys think that these lures are not marlin lures, you think they're striped tuna lures. Okay, north of the border, where the fish just happen to shrink very quickly over about a 3-yard distance, because our marlin on the Gold Coast are much smaller than the marlin that you catch in New South Wales, which are much smaller than the ones you catch in southern New South Wales. They actually have this amazing growth spurt. Okay, they actually triple in size across the border, and then towards southern New South Wales they double again, don't they? Yes. All right, now we have to see what the southerners say about our marlin up here. Okay, in Queensland, where our marlin are different, okay, they're genetically totally different marlin. These are actually the best sized lures we use for blacks and stripes. Okay, the difference up there is we do not get the ones that striped tuna that you get down here. And that's a fact. I can quite understand that you don't trial those little lures because you do get annoyed by striped tuna, but the reality is on the days that there are lots of striped tuna and marlin together, they're actually both feeding on the same bait species, which is tiny. The Pakula shackle rig is a loose rig. Okay, all the bits on it are loose, the loop's loose, and the hooks are free, even that collar's loose, everything's loose. Now, that lure and that rig will run through the water at 60 degrees. Okay, and it's incredibly stable up to around about 8.5 knots. Okay, then it starts getting unstable. If it's in the wash is turbulent, it also becomes unstable. All rigs are unstable if you run them in the wash, which is why we move lures out of the wash. Okay, as soon as you turn that rear hook into a stiff rig, that rig will spin. Okay, if you leave that loose and make that stiff, the rig will spin. Okay. Now the other rigs that you've been seeing around is the 0 degree rig, both in stiff and loose. They all spin. Okay, not very fast, but they start rotating and they spin. Now what's wrong with a spinning rig?
Less chance of a hookup.
Less chance of a hookup. Okay, less chance of a hookup. Why is there less chance of a hookup?
Spinning is a presenting law.
Marlin don't come from the top, they come from the side. They're not seagulls. They come from the side, the back or the front, they don't come from the top.
Toothpick wedge.
You won't?
Toothpick wedge.
No, in fact you shouldn't, with Pakula type lures, toothpick your lures at all. Because there are, you know, even though we try and make lures that are very symmetrical, and most of the Pakula lures, they're all lathe polished. All the skirts are good quality, but there is not a perfect skirt made. Okay? So your lure, even though it looks pretty out of the water, it will lean over to a side. And if you toothpick a Pakula type rig to it, you'll actually have a spinning lure. It'll probably spin quite slowly, and it might only spin every 15 seconds or something. But you really can't toothpick a Pakula type lure to the rig. You really should let the rig do what it wants and let the lure do what it wants. You guys know that if you control a lure, say it's only putting out 3 kilo drag, you know, a big lure on 80, putting out 3 kilo drag at normal trolling speed at 6.5 or 8 knots, at 12 and 14 knots the thing's putting out 16 kilo drag, not twice as much because you're going twice as fast as putting out 4 times more drag. The same thing happens with your rigs. As soon as you start getting up in speed, there's a lot more drag on the lure, and any imperfections, such as a crimp off to one side, or the hook off to one side, or the wire not lying perfectly in line with the hook, you've got it up on the side, that rig will spin and lay off centre. I've got tons of footage on my laptop for those guys who are interested in seeing it. I'll bring it down later. And we do have lures that we sell and they do catch fish. This is the smoking jar. Most of you would have heard of that. That also catches fish. So what do? The cooler standing up there, he's saying we should use tiny lures. I know that the largest marlin ever caught in New Zealand was caught on one of those last year. What do? What do you do?
One of each.
Yeah, pretty much you run one of each, because when you're starting out a day, you really have no idea what the fish are feeding on. Even though there might have been shoals and shoals of slimy mackerel out there for the last 6 weeks, they may not be feeding on those today. And it's really interesting that even on the days when there are lots of slimy mackerel around, and you do catch a male and you cut it up and have a look at it like we used to do in the old days, it didn't have any slimy mackerel in it. It had thousands of little things about that big in it and a couple of really big things like that in it, but it didn't have any slimy mackerel in it. It's quite remarkable that you can even catch marlin in a slimy school, cut it up and there's no slimies in it, there's other things in it. So the way we do it is we do put out one of those, and we do put out one of those, and we put out all the sizes in between. And the greater the range of sizes of lures that you start with, the more chance you've got of actually finding what the fish are feeding on at the time. Now, for example, we'd put out one of those at that size, then the next lure would be that size, and once again we'd basically work all the way back to that size. Now, where in the pattern do you put the big lures and why?
Big lures in place.
Big lures in close, smaller lures further back. Do you know the reasons why? Okay, big lures have bigger hooks, they're harder to set. The less line you've got out, the less stretch there is, the easier it is to set that hook. The smaller lures have smaller hooks, so if they're way down on the shotgun, they're easier to set than bigger hooks. That's one of the reasons. The other reason is, what is the main attractor when you're trolling? Your boat. Okay, so you want the next biggest attractor next, so that's the biggest lure, and you want that to fade out because you actually want to draw the fish right through the pattern